Hey everyone, welcome to another kitchen table review or home review of a NECA Ultimate horror action figure, and I'm going to be taking a little break from my standard review of Universal monster characters, which is what got me back into collecting action figures recently. I don't know how long I'll be able to say that because I've been collecting them again for a little while here. But I'm going to be talking about Ultimate Beetlejuice. So Beetlejuice is in my top 10 favorite, not just horror movies, but movies of all time. And so I'm going to be talking through the 5 things that I typically go over in looking at action figures. And so that's going to be the packaging, as well as the sculpt, the articulation, the accessories, and the price. And then I'm going to give this an overall score at the end. So we are going to go ahead and jump into looking at NECA's Ultimate Beetlejuice. This is the only Ultimate figure that they made from the original film. All of the other Ultimates that they have made, I think there's 3 other Ultimates, and they are linked to the sequel. And so I liked the sequel, but I'm a huge fan of the original. So I'm going to be talking through the original with you here. And I bought the figure that represents the original. So as I said, we're going to start with the packaging, and I've been trying to showcase some of that for you. And now I'm going to talk through in a little more detail here. I've got to say, this is actually one of my favorite open covers for the NECA Ultimate monster figures, and it's one of my favorites because it's not just like a shot of the character or whatever, but they're actually using a poster not for the movie like a lot of figures, but from within the movie. So this is an ad that the character Beetlejuice uses to get people to call him into the world of the living. So I'm hoping that most of y'all watching this are going to already be familiar with this character, but he is a ghost who calls himself a Bio-Exorcist. That's why you see like the ad here. And basically that means that he comes to the realm of the living and tries to scare people away or pull other tricks on them. So I think it is great that they used this cover for the opening of the box, and it's easy to see, what the character looks like just by turning the box around. So it's not like they're obscuring anything. They're just doing something that's a little more niche for the folks who love the movie. And I think this is a nice little nod to the folks who are really into the movie. I really liked seeing this and had a great time seeing this poster here. So the bottom also has directions for how to use the faceplate. We'll talk more about the faceplate soon, but instead of having multiple heads that pop on and off like other figures, forgive the glare here, there are actually faces that pop on and off, and the head stays the same. So this is a relatively new feature for the Ultimate figures, but it's becoming popular with action figures. I do love the style for the snapshots on the back. So we have what looks like little windows as part of newspaper ads or something. And there's a description, of course, here at the bottom of the different accessories that come with the figure, and I think that those are really helpful. The sides, I think, are zoomed out a little bit much, so you've got the whole body of the figure here, whereas if you look at these other figures, you're going to be able to see that they are zoomed in a little bit more. So it doesn't match with the other Ultimates, but that's okay. There's great photos, though, showcasing the poses and the props, especially on the inside. Last thing is that the head is slightly obscured because of the plastic that's put over it in the window. Maybe they were concerned that it would come off, but overall, I really like this packaging, and I would rate it a 4 out of 5. Okay, the next thing we are going to talk about is the sculpt of the figure. So here is Beetlejuice himself, and here I'll give you a little close-up of the figure and this particular face that is real funky looking close-up. And you can notice that the hair has almost like this translucent quality, very odd there. But that's what they decided to do. And I'm going to go ahead and show you close-up of the hands here. I'll flip this one over so that you can get a little bit better sense of what that looks like. The hands look pretty good. There's a lot of detail like veins and moss that I like pretty well. And then we've got a bunch of different face sculpts, and so there you can see the sculpts, and that's one of the things that I'm actually maybe a little bit unhappy with. The faces aren't terrible, but I do think they miss the mark a little. They are an okay likeness of Keaton, but he's really, really toothy in every single one of these faces. And the moss mustache is not very subtle here. I think it's a lot more subtle in the film. Wow. Okay, we'll set things back up there. So the paint, I think, around the face and everything is generally a little too dark, and I think it really like bugs out his features so that things pop and contrast in a way that maybe they didn't do like quite as much in the movie. So that's not my favorite thing, but it works okay. The rest of the sculpt is pretty good. He's got this beer gut, which I think is pretty funny. That's a great carryover from the movie. And the texture on his coat, I think, works really well. You can see some of the grooves and the detail here. You can feel where the buttons are when you hold the figure. And so like where the pocket is and everything. So lots of great details on the coat. I think that works really nicely. Texture on the pants and everything is great. So these are actual grooves, like wrinkles in the pants. So the figure does have its own kind of feel and texture and all of that. And I think the sculpt of the rest of the figure is pretty good. As with a lot of figures, the joints in like the arms are pretty noticeable. So, and in this case, one of the downsides is sort of, here, I'll turn him back towards you. You can see the joints in the hands pretty clearly here as well. So I like to do poses where the hands are turned other ways, and that's maybe a little less apparent for the figure. There's good detail on the hands, so I already showed this off a little bit. I don't know how well you can see with this zoom and this camera, but there's a lot going on with the veins, with the nails, with the moss and the dirt and all of that. So the outside of the hands look really good, but the interior pieces are kind of rough. And then we will talk a little bit more about the face plates in the next section, but you can tell a little bit where there's a break here because they just kind of rely on his receding hairline to cover the faceplate. So it looks pretty good from the front. And then the sides, it's not terribly noticeable, but you can tell that they have that break point there. So the sculpt for me is okay. This is probably about a 3.5 out of 5. All right, let's talk about articulation. So I'm going to start with the thing that's really difficult, and that is getting this thing to stand up at all. So it has some precarious balance here. I've worked for several minutes before actually turning on the camera to try and get Beetlejuice to stand up here, but there's a challenge that, if you can tell, the feet are not particularly flat or even. There's actually no way to pose this thing where the feet are both flat and even at the same time. So hopefully that's not just like my figure or anything, but it helps and it looks good if he's like, you know, lifted into the air and he's got his feet behind him or whatever. There's a, you know, a flying pose that goes along with the train conductor hat guide thing, right? So there's a tableau from the movie that fits really well with that. So if you have something where you can hold the character in suspension, it's going to look really good. But if you are like me, and I imagine a lot of people who buy this toy, and you just want it to stand up, you're maybe going to have a tough time getting it to hold a pose. Okay, well, we will, there you see that came off, and we will talk more about that shortly. This figure uses face plates rather than removable heads, all except for there's one additional replaceable head, and you can exchange the faceplate on it. It's just the hat and the hair that remains the same. Okay, so the character has a little bit of difficulty standing. Otherwise, it has a lot of articulation. The motion in the arms is pretty good. Up and down is good. They can get a little further away and a little bit closer. They could maybe move out just a tad more, but it's definitely workable for different kinds of poses. Of course, fully turnable elbow joints, same with the hands. The torso does not go up and down on its own without using the legs, but it does go side to side pretty well. And the legs get a lot of movement, so that's pretty nice. And it bends and twists at the knees too. So the articulation, I think, is pretty good. It's just that the especially his left foot is just on a weird kind of joint here. So it's the ankle doesn't have enough motion for the feet to go flat down together. Head also does pretty good. You get a lot of left and right motion, although you may have to deal with putting a face on and off a few times here. That's a weird thing that I never thought I would say. But hey, that's action figures and monsters and everything for you. So I actually have a little bit of trouble getting these face plates on and to stay on. I've had a lot more trouble with Beetlejuice than I have with other characters that use face plates, like the feral predator from Prey. I've got that figure, and the faceplate seems to be working out pretty well. So there you go. Overall, I give the articulation a 3.5. It basically does exactly what we hope it will do, which gives us quite a bit of motion, but there are a couple of drawbacks, especially the fact that it is so difficult to get him to stand. Maybe leaning him back against things and using the coat can help a little bit, because the coat is actually fairly stiff. So it is bendable, as I showed you before, but it is thick enough that you can lean him back on it. So I don't know, sitting poses maybe are the way to go. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5 on articulation. Now we are on to one of my favorite things to talk about with new figures, which are the accessories. So Bio-Exorcist Beetlejuice comes with a little paper, this is flexible, right? So a little paper ad for himself that you can put in his hands or his fingers. It will fit in a little loosely, so you'll either want to slide it in or tilt his hand up a little bit, but I think that works pretty well there. So he can hold it, and he can also hold the newspaper that he came with. So I'll show you that in just a minute, if I can actually get him to stand up. That is the real challenge of this figure. Okay, so he also comes with this really cool newspaper. So it's got, you can't read all of the words, but it looks pretty close to the thing that he's reading in the movie, and the headlines are readable, and you can see the ad that he's taken out in the paper that corresponds with the front of the package, right? And this actually opens, right? So it's not, it looks flat in the packaging, and that's a little bit deceptive. So if you want to, you can actually put it between his fingers and like in both hands. So that works out really well. That's pretty cool. So one thing that we've got to talk about are the face plates, and I've mentioned this before, but you can see they're kind of using his receding hairline as a way to kind of mask that they're using face plates. So I think from the front it works pretty well. On the sides it's a little bit more challenging, especially because the hair is translucent and then it comes across this very like dark opaque moss there, so it doesn't really hide the transition all that well, but as long as you're looking at it from the front, the figure looks pretty good. The face plates are basically like the face actually comes off, so you can see that there are two pegs here, and then there are holes for the faceplate to be inserted, and that's how you get the different expressions. I think it's kind of difficult to eyeball this and to line things up well. It is a little harder to manipulate. I haven't like looked into the reasons for this. I see that this is a trend in toys and action figures right now, is to do faceplates instead of the removable heads. So feel free to tell me more about that in the comments if you want to. For me, it's a little more challenging, right? So here's just another faceplate, and I'm showcasing some of the other accessories. I do think we get a wide variety of expressions on the faces, which is pretty good. Despite the sculpt complaints that I had, at least there's a variety in the faces. The newspaper again opens and fits in his hands, and then we have the Bio-Exorcist card. We also have a little rat. So that's kind of cool. That can fit in his hand. I don't know that, that would have made me super excited as a consumer. There, the rat got away. He can actually hold it in his hand here. I just had to flatten it out. So the rat is fine. It's got a little bit of texture. You can tell where it has ears and eyes and fur and stuff. It's not like the most textured thing that we've got there, but it's fun. It's a good little extra prop, and I put it in some photos that I took and everything. There's also a lantern. I think the lantern works pretty well, especially if you turn his hand up. That looks pretty cool, carrying around the lantern. It doesn't really have any functionality. It would be even more cool if it glowed. I think it would be nice if NECA occasionally had light up pieces, but maybe that's something for the future. Funko eventually got there, so maybe NECA will include some things like that. Either way, I really like the lantern as a prop. I think it's really nice. And each hand sculpt is really good here. The hand sculpts all do pretty different work. And that's really what I want out of the hand sculpts, is for me to be able to tell like, oh, these are used for different things, different poses. They all have different utility. And I've got to tell you, I love the finger pointing. He can point up, he can point at the audience, he can wag his finger, right? He can, there's all kinds of things you can do with this finger point. So I'm pretty happy with the pointed finger there. Now, I will say there is one removable, replaceable head. So here, I'll get rid of the lantern. I'll set that in the back there, and maybe his little rat friend too. So I'll just show this to you. There's one head that does exactly what the others do, where it pops off, and then here's another one. And you can see that it's still, the place that it goes in is with the hair. So you've got to line it up pretty specifically and snap it on. But then you have basically a version of the head that is just hair, and then you have a version of the head that's hair connected to the hat. So the hat doesn't detach. It's the hat and hair that make up the actual headpiece, but you can still replace the faceplate, right? So it doesn't have to be this. You can take that off and you can put on a different faceplate if you want. So I'm gonna go ahead and put, I don't know, I'm just reaching for stuff that I've got here. I'll go ahead and grab the kind of excited face, and you just slide the, this does give a little greater sense of like how to get things lined up. You just kind of slide it up and then push the head in, and sliding the piece up into the hat, I think, makes it a little bit easier to tell what's going on there. And then the hat obviously covers some of the lines on the side where it would show the points of articulation there, or where the faceplate comes off. I do like the hat. The guide hat is an iconic part of the original movie, so that is a nice touch. And I think altogether the accessories are really nice. I would say the hands work a little bit more functionally than a lot of others. I think the newspaper as a functional newspaper is actually a really nice touch. I love the hat. I love the lantern, and the other things are good too, even if I'm not, just overwhelmingly excited about the rat. I think the rat is a fun bonus. Same thing with the advertisement, right? His little card, his Bio-Exorcist card. So the accessories work really nicely. I give them a 4.5 out of 5. The last thing to discuss is the cost of the figure, and I think this is a pretty good assortment of accessories and function. I do think once the figure is posed, it looks really good. So the, especially from the front, so this, the sculpt works pretty well, and we do have a handful of iconic expressions that were used by Michael Keaton in the movie. I love the functionality of the different hands. I think that the props are really cool. And so I had some occasional complaints about this figure, but on the whole, I would say that it's pretty good for the price. So I'm going to say 4 out of 5 for the standard price point, which is about $35. Altogether, I really like this figure. There are some things that I wish were a little bit different, like the joints in the ankles or the face plates, but overall, I think this works really well. It has one of the most impressive packages of any of the Ultimate Monster figures. So the box looks really, really good. And as I mentioned, the accessories are particularly good. So I am definitely a fan of this figure. I'm ready to put him away for now. But when we put all of the scores together from across the different areas I was looking at, it comes out to about a 78%. And of course, I always round a little for my own personal preferences. I'm going to go ahead and round up to that B-. I think B- is a pretty solid score for this figure and adequately captures how I feel about it. It's really good. It's a figure that I am definitely glad that I have for my collection, but it is also a figure that maybe could be improved in certain ways, and so I hope we'll continue to see variants of Beetlejuice in the NECA Ultimate series going forward. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, feel free to leave a like or a comment to tell me your thoughts about the figure or questions about the figure, and of course subscribe if you're so inclined to see more videos like this in the future. I will be back with more reviews of the NECA Ultimate monster figures very soon.